Welcome again to today's Ballots and Beans coffee conversation to those of you who have joined on Zoom and Facebook. Today we are rolling out our new Africa Committee. You will have the opportunity during the next 1.5 hours to meet the principal movers and shakers of the committee. So what will you see today? You'll hear from members of the committee and we'll tell you what we're up to and also why we're up to it, because Africa is a unique constituency for Democrats abroad. And we want you to hear what the challenges and opportunities that this uniqueness poses are. And we also, more importantly, we want to hear from you, because that's really why we're here. We want to hear your thoughts, and we've identified 4 ways to get input from you through polling, breakout session, and then an open conversation. So very shortly, you will actually receive a poll that we're going to ask you to complete, and we will read the results of the poll at the end of this, right? And we also, throughout this event, want to let you know how you can get involved in Democrats abroad. But now to the housekeeping rules that we should have announced earlier. So as Caroline said, this is a recorded event. And so please, again, people who are just joining, please turn your video off if you do not want your image to appear. Please also keep your microphones on mute when you are not speaking. And also during the Q&A session, other than the breakout rooms, please type asterisk hand up into the chat box so that we can queue people up who want to speak. Also, we ask you to please not interrupt people in mid-sentence while they are speaking. And also, we should let you know that Democrats Abroad is a volunteer-driven organization. So please help us register Americans all over the world for particularly this crucial year during the midterm elections. You can also make a financial contribution, which is very important. We're especially in need of sustaining donors who can give monthly contributions at whatever level. So $5 a month, anything that you can contribute goes a long way. We have a critical year in front of us with federal, state, and local elections that we absolutely must win. That means that we need all hands on deck. And so to become a volunteer, our tech person, Caroline, is going to post in the chat box a link to a volunteer form that you can complete. And last but not least, I encourage all of you to tell your friends, family, coworkers, and even strangers about our new Africa Committee. So thanks for joining us today. And I now have the distinct pleasure and honor to introduce our fearless leader, Democrats Abroad International Chair, Candace Karastan. Over to you, Candace.
Thank you so much, Eve, for your really kind words and that beautiful introduction. It is really a pleasure to be here with all of you today. As Eve mentioned, my name is Candace Karastan, and I serve as International Chair for Democrats Abroad. I am based in Munich, Germany, and I vote out of rural Pennsylvania, so working hard to make sure we get every ballot we can back to PA. And to go back to the beginning of this, this has been a very long process to get to this day, a very good and thoughtful process though, and I am really excited to be here for this Ballots and Beans event because there's so much potential in Africa. You know this better than anyone, being on the ground there, and I'm grateful to see our outreach as an organization in Africa becoming more formal and becoming more effective as a result. So I'd particularly like to thank the members of the newly launched Africa Committee, which we, as an international executive committee, and I see Jennifer Raquel Stepper and Art Schenkler on the call as well, who are members of the International Executive Committee, for coming into touch really with those of you on the ground in Africa and getting this committee formalized. And the 2 country committees, our country committees again are formal official bodies within the Democrats Abroad structure. So a shout out to South Africa and Kenya, who are also on the call. I say this only to really emphasize that so much development and so much work and thought and energy from your side has gone in to developing our outreach in Africa. And I'm really excited about it. So I'm grateful to you for your work, and I'm grateful to see where this goes. And I am, again, honored to be here as we kick off really the Africa Committee and talk about how we can mobilize the overseas voters in Africa. Eve, you highlighted this. I need to drive it home too. You know, there is so much at stake this year. We got 34 US Senate seats. We have every single seat in the US House of Representatives, 46 state legislatures. So the places where reproductive justice is being decided, where healthcare, education, a lot of those state and local level decisions are being made. And of course, 36 state governorships are up for grabs this November. Our democracy, not to be alarmist and dramatic, but a lot is riding on Democrats showing up in November of 2022. So I have a few asks today before we dive into the program, and I'm sure you're going to hear a lot more about that from others on the call as well. But that is just to make an appeal to you today to request your ballot right now, get it out of the way. You'll get it for all the 2022 elections. Regardless of where you vote or how long you have lived abroad, you do have the right to vote in US federal elections, and many states also at the state and local level. And you can get your ballot at votefromabroad.org. The votes from abroad can and often do make a difference, especially in tight races. And we know there is going to be no shortage of tight races this year. So our votes from abroad really do count. We've kicked off this year trying to bring the elections closer to our members around the world, including in Africa, bring the issues closer to you and the candidates closer to you so that you know who and what is on the ballot in November, and so that the lawmakers stateside also know the issues that are impacting you and generally their overseas voters. So please get your ballot. As Eve mentioned, we are an all volunteer run and donation funded organization and incredibly effective, again, at winning those tight races. We're running a battleground state outreach campaign right now. So we just finished outreach to Texas for their primary. On Monday, we're going to get started with phone banking to all of our Ohio voters abroad. Again, a really important US Senate race there, governor's race as well. And we'll continue this throughout the spring and summer. Georgia, Pennsylvania, North Carolina are going to be up. But we need funding to make this happen. So also, if you are able to make a financial contribution, again, at democratsabroad.org/donate, that will really help us reach these voters in the most critical of races, and very grateful for that. And last but not least, and then I'll hand over the mic, Eve, is, you know, so much of what we do happens at the relational level. And I am not based in Africa, and I recognize that. But so much of what we do happens through word of mouth. And I would also just like to make an appeal to everyone on this call to think about who you can reach out to, your alumni networks, perhaps your professional networks, your family, your friends. You know, if you ask, people oftentimes do know someone who's living overseas. And there are a lot of untapped communities that we need to get into in 2022 and further in 2024. So yeah, please get your ballot if you're able, donate and volunteer with us. And last but not least, think about who you can spread the word to about voting from abroad. And I'm sure that when we do all these things together, that we're going to reach more people than we ever have before in Africa. And I'm really grateful to all of you for that. So on that note, I'll turn it back over to Eve. And thank you again for organizing, everyone. Wishing you a great event.
Great, Candace. Thank you very much for your inspiring words. We really needed to hear all that you said because it's really a call to action, and we all need to mobilize everyone all over Africa, particularly because I think we can make a difference. There's so many of us, but so few of us get involved. So we really, really need to do this. So now we are turning to the moment of this event where we can hear from some of the key members of the Democrats Abroad Africa Committee. We are starting off with Wes Magruder. He is also in the same country that I'm in South Africa. Hi there, Wes.
Hello there.
Hi, with you, Wes, we really like to hear from you to answer the question about why the overseas vote, what's important about it. But first, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure, I vote in Texas, so go Beto. Hoping we can finally unseat Greg Abbott for the governorship. So hoping for that. But I've been in South Africa for the last 3 years, and where I'm a lecturer. And my role with this committee is communications, and I'm also active in the DA South Africa committee group as well.
Okay. Why did you join DA?
Well, I mean, I think like a lot of us, I joined because I feel a great responsibility to uphold the democratic process in America. And I think we all recognize that in many ways, democracy has been deteriorating some of our rights, some of our responsibilities. And so just because I live in Africa doesn't mean that I don't have a voice at home. And, you know, it's important to remind people that if you're an American, you have the right to vote in federal and state elections. And so I consider that a great privilege and responsibility that I carry along with my passport. I've also begun to see that that Americans living overseas are having a larger and larger role in elections and in deciding elections. So let me just give you 2 quick examples from the 2020 presidential election. In the state of Georgia, Joe Biden ended up winning Georgia by only 13,000 votes. And over 18,000 votes cast in Georgia came from overseas. So it's very literally possible that, you know, it's the overseas vote that made the difference in Georgia. Same thing in Arizona, where Biden won by only 11,000 votes. But again, there were over 18,000 votes that came from overseas. In fact, in 2020, 1.2 million ballots were requested and sent to Americans living overseas, and 900,000 of those were returned, which means that, as far as my understanding, that means that 30% of the eligible overseas voters voted in 2020, which is a huge increase over previous years. For example, the 2016 election, in which only 7% of overseas voters took the time to return a ballot, and it was even worse in the 2018 midterms when less than 5% voted. So if we keep this up, if we keep this trend going, then perhaps, you know, American voters abroad can really set the standard for our family and friends back home.
Great. Super. Thanks, Wes.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for that. And that's really kind of sets the tone for what we need to do, basically, because it's really, really so important. So next we move on to Monifa. Monifa's based in Senegal. And she's going to talk to us about the Africa landscape and the connection between Democrats abroad, Americans, and, you know, what's so important about the Africa landscape and what is the connection? Help to spell that out for us, Monifa.
Yes, thanks, Eve. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And I really appreciate you guys taking your Saturday afternoon to spend some time with us. As Eve said, I'm Monifa Pendleton. I'm actually from New York and have been living in Senegal, Dakar, Senegal for the past 3 years. We moved here from Paris. I was involved in DA in Paris, and now we are here, and it's been a super amazing experience. As I'm not sure if you know the expansive nature of the continent of Africa, there are 54 unique countries, individual countries. They're broken up into 5 regions. Africa is projected to be by 2030 or 50 the largest continent with the biggest, markets that I guess the world will continue to need. I don't know. This group came together because we saw a real potential to expand the footprints of Democrats abroad and how we can be intentional about organizing, about getting people out to vote, about allowing Americans living abroad to be clear about the issues and challenges faced. As Wes mentioned, listen, we pay taxes until we die. Doesn't matter if we're in the US or wherever we are in the world. So we want to make sure that Americans living on this continent have an impact and can see what it is that we do. And just to give you a flavor, Americans have been coming and living in Africa for decades, right? I mean, maybe they all started as missionaries or as US State Department employees stationed here on the continent, or even Peace Corps volunteers, as they finished their university studies. But this landscape is also changing. We moved here because my husband had an opportunity with the World Bank. I had a very robust career in finance, and now I'm launching my own business here in Senegal. My husband has since left the World Bank and launched his own financial services firm. And so the opportunities are in abundance. More and more, as an African American, I would say more and more African Americans are moving to the continent, specifically West Africa. I'm sure South Africa is a nice place, soft place to land for Americans. And we're becoming entrepreneurs and seeing opportunities. But with that, we also have to continue to exercise our voice, in the American political landscape. And Africa, we see it as even Africans who have moved to the US and repatriate back to their countries, but during that time have gotten US citizenship. We have an opportunity to reach out to them and allow and educate them on the ability to stay involved in the US political landscape, because, as we all know, as Americans, we have a lot of interests around the world, and we need to make sure that our voices as the Democratic Party remains at the top of the agenda. And so with that, I will hand it back over or address any questions. As for my involvement in Dhac, I run the events. So if anybody is interested in supporting us on our journey, please, I think there will be a form that goes around. Please feel free to contact us and me directly with your interest. Thank you very much.
Great, Monifa, thank you so much. And thanks for the plug of South Africa, because when I first moved to South Africa, someone referred to it as Africa for beginners in terms of the soft landing. So then I moved to Congo, where they say it's Africa for PhD levels. So
yeah, I agree.
So now we turn to Adam Vickers, with whom I am only connected biblically. Adam, please tell us a little bit about yourself and your role with DAAC. Why is Get Out the Vote so important at this time?
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Eve. Yeah, my name really is Adam, and I do use an Apple computer, so y'all can take from that whatever you want. Yeah, I vote in Kansas. I live in Botswana. My job with the Africa Committee, as Eve pointed out, is focused on voting, specifically getting out the vote. Now, DA has lots of ways of encouraging its members to vote, including, phone banking, and we still need to do this every year. So people's help is needed there. But, in the Africa Committee, we really realized that most of our potential voters living on this continent are not DA members. So we have to get out there in the markets, we have to get to events, so forth. We need to encourage people to vote. Now, our colleagues in South Africa, as we mentioned, in Kenya, South Africa and Kenya already have country committees. So they're busy getting this started now. And if you're living there, your help will be appreciated. So if you haven't hooked up with them yet and you're living there, please get in touch with them and help them. They need all the help they can get. And if you're living in one of the other 52 countries on the continent, please volunteer to help us get out the American vote in your country. And that'll be my first ask. That's the first thing I'm going to ask for you tonight. My second ask is about extending our reach. Now, we know that there are thousands of Americans here in Africa who are affiliated with various voluntary, business, religious, other kinds of associations. And we want to offer these groups the opportunity to for their members to register to vote through votefromabroad.org. And if their members run into obstacles, we want to offer support through our existing VFA nonpartisan voter assistance process. Again, the assistance is offered to any American voter, not just Democrats. So the associations don't need to be worried about being affiliated with the Democratic Party. This is just something they can do for the good of their members. Now, my second ask for everyone in this call is to help us identify and contact these organizations. Now, if you're a member or know about one of these associations, please share that information with us as soon as you can, because we have to get through a process with them to sort of set them up and help them get started. Now, Robert will be sharing with you the details of how you can help us out with either one or both of these requests, anything to do with manpower or volunteering. And there is the link to the volunteer form in the chat box, which I see is now out there. So that's about it for Vote From Abroad. Cheers.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Adam. So next up is the Kenya chair of Democrats Abroad, and that is Robin Emerson. And she's going to tell us a little bit about her experience as running a country committee. And we just want to hear from you, Robin. Why are country committees so important?
Yeah, thank you very much, Eve. Thank you very much for my colleagues across Africa that have been working so hard to bring Democrats Abroad Africa Committee to a realization. I am just in awe of my team and my colleagues across the continent. So Eve, you ask about why are country committees important? So let me put it this way. If you think about it, Democrats Abroad is akin to a state party. And Wes, you and I come from a very unique Lone Star state of Texas, 254 counties there. I happen to be in a country with the country code of 254 also. So I think it was kind of divine and orchestrated. So if you think about the Democrats Abroad being a state party, and then I like to be related to the country committees as county parties, right? So we are under the Democrats Abroad Global, and we are like county parties. And the country committees, the only two that are across Africa, are more local. They're the easy access representatives of matters related to voting and to what the Democratic Party puts on as primary important issues. And so the officers that are elected at the country committee levels are elected according to that country's bylaws by the Democratic Abroad members in that country, and what they're saying that they're mandated to do to serve the needs and the interests of the American voters that are in that host country. And so it is extremely important that we strengthen these two current country committees that are in Africa, and that we strive to make ready other country committees to become a country committee. because it is the local context of life, the local context of the unique concerns of American voters in those host committees, host countries that are worthy of being addressed and that are worthy of us accommodating for. And where do I mean by that? I mean accommodating within the larger, broader Democrats Abroad global. And I gotta tell you, in the short time of 2 years that Democrats Abroad has been loosely organized, and thank goodness for us becoming formalized, we are bringing issues to the table in our EMEA region and on our DA global table that may not have been addressed before, are thought to be of importance. So please know that it is the country committee where we get to have that voice and we get to bring them at that level. It is at the country committee level that American voters get the opportunity to do grassroots mobilizing. We have the opportunity to engage our friends and our colleagues in our host countries to make them aware that voting from abroad is doable, but not only is it doable, but it is extremely critical. So I want to acknowledge my Democrats Abroad committee members that are on this call. Thank you very much for being here. And Eve and Chair Elizabeth, I am so honored to be on this journey with you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Robin. And actually, I think it's a really good, what you shared was a good segue into our next speaker, because there may be people out there who are thinking, well, you know, there are two committees on the continent and I'm in a country that's not either of those countries. And so what do I do? So next up is my fellow South African resident, Bradley Jackson, who's going to talk a little bit about the concept of transnational committees. So Brad, what happens when you can't form a country committee? Please share that with us.
Hi, everyone. I'm not sure if you can hear me. I'm in an area where the signal, unfortunately, is not great.
We can hear you okay, Brad.
Yeah, we can hear you, Brad.
Let me see.
We can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. The bandwidth on my connection is poor, so I'm just going to use my voice. I'm sorry I won't be in a live picture.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited as well about this new group, DA Africa. We, as previously was spoken, we are an area that covers 5 regions, and one of the reasons why the transnational committees were, should say, is being developed is because there are a lot of Americans and people that are sparsely populated in countries and other countries in Africa, regions of Africa, that could use representation. So when a nation is, when a body or a person, individual is not able to create a country committee, they have an alternative body that they can find representation in, which was approved by the DPCA. It's called the Transnational Committee or a Region Committee. Now, this DA structure was approved last year, which means that it's very new, it's very fresh in the charter amendment approval process. This affiliation was approved as a new structure for DA members that helps with large geographical regions. And Africa has plenty of those. The Caribbean region was recently officially recognized as a transnational committee or region committee, and they have the status. They are the first. The region committee charter amendments were approved, and they they'll grow, we believe that they will grow our ability to engage and represent members that live outside of areas where there are currently, well, in Africa's case, only 2 country committees. There is a need to create more flexible organizational groupings, which is the reason why this designation was created. And the DPCA believes that there may be more opportunities for synergy and cooperation amongst the members in a larger geographic area. In other words, they'll be able to come up with messaging that that can fit for multiple countries, national boundaries. Just on a governance side, to begin and have a prospective regional committee, in terms of the jargon, in terms of the bylaws, all of the requirements of the section 5.2, which is the Democrats Abroad bylaws, having less than 50 members of Democrats Abroad, upon application to the chair, which is Candace, who spoke earlier, they can be approved and admitted as a what is called a committee in formation, and thereby start the process to go towards a transnational committee or regional committee. So what we're trying to say here is that there's other avenues. If you're not in an area where there is a current country committee structure, there are other ways in which you can participate and be active within Democrats Abroad. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Brad. I just want to kind of let people know that we're sharing a lot of information with you. And so you'll have the opportunity at the end of this meeting to, and even before the end of this meeting, because we're just about to go into breakouts just after our last speaker, so that you can actually pose questions within the breakout sessions as well as at the end in the open conversation segment. So last but not least is the person I call our moral compass, Bishop Robert Kelly, who keeps us honest and very well staffed, which is why he is the person ideally suited to speak to you about people and the role that people can play as part of this committee. Particularly, he can talk about what are the skills that are most crucially needed at this juncture in the evolution of our committee. So, Robert, what are the skills needed for this committee? And please also tell us a bit about yourself. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Eve. You're doing an excellent job this evening, as we knew you would. To the committee, all protocol observed, to all those that are in place this evening, and what a great evening it is. There's such thing as never despising small beginnings. And this is what I would call a very large, small beginning. So we are thankful that everybody has joined us. So staffing, I think Eve said something that was important. First of all, I realize that you guys are late in the evening, so you're not like me having a good cup of coffee. By the way, this is Colombian. And it's delicious. This is a coffee conversation, is it not? So allow me to just talk to you as if I'm in a restaurant on a Saturday morning. I'm sitting in Ohio, and for the first time this year, I'll vote from Ohio. Last year, I voted from New Jersey because I was on absentee from New Jersey. I reside in South Africa, but with this platform, I'm not sure where I reside now. I'm all over Africa. But people matter. In this process, we can't have a process without people. And I think Eve touched on the element of potential. I think we're more concerned about people who want to fulfill a promise rather than potential. Because I think potential just brings sort of purpose in a way. We want people who are purposed. I don't think your skill set matters, because first of all, you're in Africa. Everybody does something different when they come to Africa. And that's an awesome thing about it. I'm sure some of the people on this platform came to Africa as bankers, but might end up being cooks, or some of them came as restaurant owners and then ended up being interpreters. Africa is a place where you can explore a part of yourself that you've always wanted to explore but never had the freedom to do it. So we'd like to hear your proposals about how you can work with us. We're the Democratic Party. We're the Democratic Party in Africa, representing the Africa agenda. You also know we're a continental initiative. We have Kenya, which is a country, South Africa, Daac is a country, but this is a continental committee. When you look at the Africa platform from a continental perspective, as Manifa had mentioned, the sky's the limit. Tell us what you can do for us. That's just as important. And so the larger question I'd like to propose to you is that if you're going to carve out some of your time and give it to the Democratic Broad Africa Committee, I'd like you to ask yourself two questions. Why and what value would it be? The late Martin Luther King, he had a statement, had a couple of speeches that I've always enjoyed. But on one of them, he talked about the power of the individual. You might be sitting in Angola by yourself, don't even know any other Americans. That doesn't mean that you can't have significant impact with us. You might be sitting in Zimbabwe and not even sure if there are any Americans who care. As long as you care, you can make a difference. You don't have to be in a country where there's a whole lot of Americans that are trying to figure out how to vote. Just be a vote of one. And with us, we'll help you make a difference no matter where you are. And so make a proposal. Just make a proposal, come and say, I'm in a particular country. I really don't know many people. I don't know if there are any Americans here, but will you guys help me? Because at the end of the day, we're all about facilitating. We facilitate the process of DA. DA facilitates the process of DA Global. DA Global facilitates the process of Democratic National Committee. Democratic National Committee facilitates the process of a Democratic Congress and the congressional officials that we represent on this body as well. And then that also filters up to the White House. If you want to make a difference in Africa, that's one thing. But if you are so far away that you haven't figured out yet that you can also make a difference in the White House, you need to talk to us. Have a good evening.
Great, Bishop Kelly, as always, inspiring. And thank you for reminding me that reminding us all that we have tremendous skill sets, and that when we come to this continent, we find that we probably have a lot more skill sets than we realize, and that are very useful to apply in this context. So thank you very much for that. So it looks like we are showing the results of the poll at this stage before we go out to the breakout sessions. So we've got some interesting results that most of the people who responded feel that both the US and Africa are home for them. And so that's quite interesting. Only 14% of the people feel that only the US is home. And so that would be quite useful to probe to find out, perhaps this is our population is very transient often. And so within our population, there's so many different kind of stories represented. Some of us are here for good, some of us are just passing through. So an interesting spread of responses there. The second question, can you make a difference? Looks like people are really hopeful, and that's really a good sign that people are mostly hopeful. Most people filled out the top 2 responses, and nobody filled out the bottom. So that's really good. So we have an energized, very optimistic group, and that's exciting to know. It looks like for the third question, most people are doing quite a lot. We're not writing to our congressional representatives as much. That's something that we probably all think about doing, but we might not be doing it as much. And that's something that also can make a difference as well, even from your perch an ocean away. And finally, the issues that you're most interested in terms of connecting the US to Africa. US foreign policy, very important, and very important around Africa. Often we have the sense that Africa is a bit of an afterthought when it comes to US foreign policy, particularly when there's huge issues going on in other parts of the world like there are at this very moment. Then, of course, US national security, trade, which is very important for African development, USAID, which is another, many of us who've come to this continent, including myself, have come under that particular rubric. And then, of course, cultural ties. Many people who are involved in Democrats abroad are people who are naturalized Americans. And so that's a very important aspect of this. So this is something that we can actually bring into the breakout sessions that we're just about to go into. I am somehow, okay, I keep getting a new picture here, but we're just about to go into breakout rooms. And so what I'd like you to do when you find yourself in a breakout room is think about the questions that you'd like to pose that have come up for you during the course of this meeting. And then each breakout session will be hosted by one of us. And so you'll have the opportunity to introduce yourself, share a bit about your background, and also pose any questions you might have. So Caroline will help us get into breakout rooms, and I think we're just about there.
If anyone is having any difficulty joining a breakout room, please let me know and I can help you.
Hey, Caroline, I was trying to send, it's Elizabeth, trying to send a message to Eve just to tell people how long the breakout is for, but didn't do that in time. You can send me somewhere else if you want. I just was going to take a screenshot of this screen, but there's like a big black box in the middle. There we go. That looks better. Okay. Yeah, I've been taking some screenshots as we've been going along. Hey, Caroline?
Sorry, yes?
Could you do me a favor? Can you put me in another room?
Oh, I was just closing the breakout rooms because the schedule says
Okay,
to close
yeah,
them now.
it's been a while. Okay, yeah, no problem. I'll just stay here then. I was just gonna go check out another one. We ended up with Katie
Sorry about-
Solon, the star of our video there. Great. So did you buy a coffee?
Now I have to be careful again about what I'm saying, right?
Uh-oh.
The recording is back.
Okay. We're back. We are back, and I hope that everybody has had a very fruitful discussion. We are now going to, and you'll have more opportunities. I think, what happens with these breakout sessions is we just start to build momentum in our discussions, and then it's time to go back to plenary. So there'll be more opportunity later on in the plenary. But now we're going to do something fun. We're going to I'm sure many people on the call have done word clouds. And so we're going to get your feedback in very short form, where Caroline is going to refer you in the chat, I believe, to a website that you can go to and then type in, she's put it in the website. So you go to that, click on that link and go there. And we want to ask you to write one word that describes your current feeling about the state of US politics at this very moment. And then we'll come back and then figure out what is dominating everybody's preoccupation around this. So go to the chat and we'll see you back in a sec. Okay. Wow, okay. Very quick feedback. I think somebody put, oh yeah, QAnon. All right. Terrible, uncertain, distressing, concerning. No one word is coming out, but the words are very, very similar. Distressing, disturbing, shameful, frustrating, concerning, divisive, fraught, recessive, challenging, uncertain, dangerous. Yes, so everybody, all of those words are very, very similar. And so it means that many people are concerned. And I think another person has regressive, yes. And so I think this really underscores the importance of the need to act and to get involved in the democratic process in our country, literally to save it, as many people have already suggested. So thank you to everybody who's participated in this exercise. And now it is time to hear from our colleague Apiorkor Ashong Abi, who's going to ask us a few questions about outreach. So, Apiorkor, are you?
I'm here. Hi, Eve.
Okay. Hi there.
You're doing a fabulous job, as is everyone else. And hello
Okay.
to everyone. My name is
Thank
Apio.
you.
I am with the DAAC XCOM. I live in Ghana, vote in Pennsylvania. and I coordinate here in Ghana as far as Democrats Abroad is concerned. So just have a few questions for you. I'll put them in the chat as well as I mentioned them. The very first one is, how did you find out about the DAAC? How did you find out about the DAAC? And I would appreciate it if you could just drop your answers in the chat. We really want to hear from you because this is a conversation. It's not a one-way street here. And we do want to act on some of the things that you say in the chat. So first question, how did you find out about the DAAC? Adam says, Robert recruited me. Wes says, personal reference from Bishop Kelly. Bishop Kelly asked Eve to join through DA Kenya. Robert is just popping up everywhere. See what we mean? That's why you said he's a moral compass, you know, and he has to do with people, just connecting everyone and everything. Okay, someone says from Jen, and in London at age 10, well, Elizabeth, justifying your chair position here at the DAAC. Okay. Nobody can say no to a man of God. I agree with you, Wes. And Brad says, well, Baca and Robert. Robin says, was part of the forming group in 2020, worked to host events that year. Proud we're now formally recognized. Adrian says, from initial outreach from the GBC, so glad the seed planted is sprouting. And Stacy says, DA email list. So, I mean, we found out about the Democrats Abroad, the DAAC from different places, and it's beautiful to see that even though we found it out from different places, we have different backgrounds, we're all here together today. Next question, okay? How do you best relate to DAAC? So, where do you get your news about what we're doing? And pretty similar, but this time, how do you relate, okay? How do you best relate to DAAC? Again, your comments are welcome in the chat, please. How do you best relate? Okay, serve as a volunteer, Wes says. Brilliant one. And we need more, so please come through. Anyone else? Servant. Bishop, well, of course, Bishop would say servant. Okay. Do you have anyone else coming? Supporter, Brad says. Queen Dasha says service. Yeah. Richard says, I want to hear more from DAAC about how I can help, and I'm sure we'll give all that information before we leave this call. Volunteer and presenter on some special events like DASA Kids events. That's from Eve. Elizabeth says, getting the word out about fundamental voting rights. Adrienne says, supporter. So again, varied ways in which we all relate to the DAAC. Personally, I would also say servants. I'm a director at large on the XCOM, and when everybody says jump, I just say how high, because it's all about what we're doing, the bigger picture. Okay, Daniel says supporter. Ditto's Adrian. Okay. Robert says we have plenty for Richard to do. So Richard, get your hat on because we're ready for you. So the next thing would be, how do we get other Americans in Africa to connect to us? How do we get other Americans in Africa to connect to us? I mean, we have our own ideas of how to do that. This event is one of those things, but I'm sure you have ideas, you have different experiences, and every experience living on the continent in a different country is different. So in your estimation, how do we get other Americans in Africa to connect to us? Wes says social media. Agree. Can't do it without social media these days. Okay, anyone else? About social media. Reach out to students and dual nationals. Love that, Adrian. And I must say that personally, I'm a dual national. I was born in the US, raised there, but my parents are Ghanaian. So I have Ghanaian nationality as well. And it's a great thing to do. Try to identify every point like youth who are studied abroad, like the Peace Corps as well. Newspaper articles, Robert says, organically meeting and making mention. Leveraging personal networks, and that's a great one, Stacey. Thank you. Eve says getting on radio, TV. I agree as a media person. Lee Donald says, visit local American groups and talk about common interests and engage in conversation. Conversations always do it, don't they? And then Adam says, you know, I'm going to say voluntary associations. Yes, we know Adam. Richard says, ask every American we know or meet if they're registered, not for Dems or GOP, but to work with Adam's entree to encourage all to register. Then it opens the door to Dems options. And you could have put it better, Richard. We need to take responsibility, I think, and just get out there, not be shy, have the courage, and invite every person. Elizabeth, speaking their language, especially dual citizens. I agree, Elizabeth. I agree. U.S. Alumni Group affiliates, that's from Adrienne, and Lidonna says visible. Great, and thank you guys. So another one, how can you help us? How can you help us? I mean, Richard has put himself out there, but everybody has their strengths, their interests, and we want to capitalize on those things. That's what we do at the DAAC. So how can you help us? Dasha says, keep talking. Yeah, keep talking. How can you help us? Maybe I should prompt you. So, for example, if we do graphics, we need to put our PR out there. These are things that you typically pay for, but you have a skill, you're lending it to us. Robin says, introduce our American voter friends to what we offer. Thank you, Robin. And you've been doing a lot of that already. Okay. How can you help us? Collaborate and share content. That's from Donald. Thank you. Donate from Wes. Very important. It takes money to do things, whether we like to admit it or not. Queen Dasha, tell us what you need. Varied skill sets. You're right. Make the issues approachable and easily engaging. That's from Robin. Find the Americans who live here. That's from Adam. Connect American voters to their representatives, coming in from Robin. Have people from your team to join the Global Black Caucus, the GBC. And thank you, that's important because we do need to have a symbiotic relationship with the GBC, I think. Organize fun activities that will attract people, says Eve. Okay, so let's move on. Now, call to action. So I really, you said a lot of interesting things. I'm taking note of all of them. When we do have our DAAC meetings, we won't throw these things away because they're important to us and they're all brilliant ideas. But please follow us on Facebook. That's the first thing I'll say. Follow us on Facebook, Democrats Abroad Africa, Democrats Abroad Africa. And then find the Facebook group for your state and join it. Very important. Find the Facebook group for your state and join it. And if you need help finding your group, or you just need a link to a group, you need a little push, you need help. Because sometimes, and there are a lot of Democrats Abroad pages on Facebook. It's hard to find the one you may be looking for sometimes. Just let us know. I'm sure if you sent us a message to our Facebook page or any of that, reach out to any of us on our personal social media, we definitely give you a helping hand, okay? And then for you who are multitaskers, right? Open another tab on your browser right now. So just open another tab on your browser. You know, some people can like look into the camera and still open tabs. Go ahead and do that. And then just follow us right now. Follow us right now. Once again, on Facebook with Democrats Abroad Africa. Extremely simple. Okay? Extremely simple. Dasha has a question. She said, what's the difference between the varied organizations we now have? And perhaps when I hand over to Elizabeth, she can answer that question. Dasha says, what is the difference between the varied organizations we now have? And I think she's particularly talking about the Global Black Caucus and then the DAAC. Thank you all. Once again, my name is Apiokwa, and we look forward to working with all of you. Over to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Apiokwa. I heard, I didn't hear what the question was. I will try to answer it. Can you just repeat that?
Okay, so Dasha is asking, what's the difference between the varied organizations that we now have? And I think she's particularly referencing the Global Black Caucus and the DAAC. What's the difference between the two organizations?
I see. Okay. So let me just, I'll just say briefly that Democrats Abroad is a huge, of course, all volunteer organization that's made up of people who have varying interests. And one of the, it has committees like ours, it has caucuses, it has other groups. It's got, for example, taxation committees. It's got a new, one of the newest is for, I'm probably going to say this wrong, but I think it's for senior citizens and for issues that impact people who are basically retired, Social Security issues, things like that. So we are part, I was going to talk about our committee, and just to put us in the context of that, we are also, along with the Senior Citizens Committee, perhaps the newest committee. And so let me just say first, so I'm Elizabeth Myers. I'm an American lawyer living in Morocco, and I vote in Virginia. And it's true that at age 10, that was my first exposure to Democrats Abroad because my mother was a very active volunteer in a lot of the events when we were growing up in London. But my current involvement actually only goes back to the middle of 2020 when I finally arrived in Morocco full-time after many years of doing the back and forth thing and discovered that there was a Facebook page for Democrats Abroad Morocco that had not been updated in 2 years. And so my involvement with Democrats Abroad in my current adult life happened because of that. I said, oh my goodness, this is an incredibly important election in 2020, and nobody's here in Morocco helping Americans and Moroccan Americans and folks here who may not know they can vote from abroad to vote from abroad. So I got involved that way. And so this is, I'm really, really excited to actually finally have our launch event because this is our first official solo event since we were formed officially on January 22nd, just over a month ago, which happens to be, would have been my mother's 96th birthday. So it's a little bittersweet in a way because she's no longer with us. But the birth of this committee, of Democrats Abroad's Africa Committee, is really a recognition of the growing strategic, political, economic, and social significance of Africa to the US. And of course, we know that there are deep historical ties to Africa among people of African descent in America. And there are thousands, as Robert mentioned, thousands of American citizens, and I think Adam as well, living on the continent, many of whom have come back to their roots here. And of course, we also know that the overseas vote helped President Biden win in several of the key battleground states in 2020. And a significant but probably underestimated portion of that voting bloc is probably right here in Africa. So, and several of our speakers have also, our committee members have noted there's only 2 country committees in all of the 54 countries on the continent. And those 2 country committees are doing marvelous work. They have fabulous events all the time. I really was hoping I could just fly out to Kenya for their jazz event that was a few weeks ago. It looked fantastic. So our mission here in the Africa Committee now is to mobilize American voters across the continent and educate them on their right to vote in American elections and help build these country committees and these transnational committees that our Africa Chair, Brad, told you about. And in my view, transnational committees are going to be particularly important to US voters in Africa. As so eloquently stated by Kenya's representative to the UN just last week, Africa's country borders reflect its colonial legacy of divvying up the continent without regard to linguistic, ethnic, cultural, or even other meaningful commonalities. So having the opportunity to establish a transnational committee that can include several African countries at a time, it will provide an effective way to tap into the vast American voter pool here and make sure that the voices of those American voters who don't have the benefit of CCs are heard back home. So today, I'm really pleased to say that our representation, the Africa Committee's representation of American voters living in Africa, reaches Americans in 9 countries across the continent. We've got Botswana, Ghana, Kenya, Lesotho, Morocco, Nigeria, Rwanda, Senegal, and South Africa. And while that's actually up from only 7 countries just a few weeks ago, we're looking to expand into many others. And so as our members have been saying, we're inviting new members and volunteers from all over the African continent to join us in supporting US democracy in the run-up to the 2022 elections and the 2024 elections. So as Candace said at the top, there's so much at stake just this year alone, not to mention the presidential election in 2024. And all of the seats mentioned by Candace are offices in which decisions that impact your family's everyday activities and lives are made, including, maybe most importantly right now, our fundamental right to vote itself is at stake. So I'm going to repeat a few asks, which are go to the nonpartisan votefromabroad.org to either register to vote if you're not registered to vote, or to request your overseas ballot for the 2022 elections. Once you do that this year, it's good for all of the elections that you're eligible to vote in. And if you have any difficulties at all, please do contact the help desk at votefromabroad.org. And we'll post these links in the chat. And in a minute, we're going to end the session with our general coffee conversation, where we can interact with each other and with our committee members, which will keep open for another 15 minutes or so. But I would like to give a big shout out and a thank you to our executive council members who spoke today and also who otherwise helped make this program possible. I think we've probably got too many for me to name them by name, but I'm going to do it anyway. So Eve Thompson, our fabulous moderator, Bishop Robert Kelly III, Monifa Pendleton, Adam Vickers, Brad Jackson, Robin Emerson, Apiokor Ashang Abi, David Ajay Twum, Wes Magruder, Tendochi Kororo, Tom Bakote, Violet Bewa, Chuma Onwuka, and Colleen Daly. I hope I didn't miss anybody, but we're so really blessed to have so many talented people in our midst who've got amazing capabilities to get the work of this committee done. And of course, so much work has gone on behind the scenes over the last few days and weeks to make this such a smooth event. So I want to thank all of our great volunteers off camera and behind the scenes at DA Global, and especially our tech manager today, Deputy Regional Vice Chair Caroline Rouchanet. Thank you so much, Caroline. And then finally, I'd like to thank our International Chair who is with us today, Candace, and our Regional Vice Chair, Jen Rockow-Stepper, who provides guidance along the way to us and assistance. So we are here to hear from you. So please consider joining the committee and volunteering no matter where you are in Africa. We do have a critical year in front of us and really do need all hands on deck. So our volunteer link again is in the chat. Our volunteer intake form specifically for DA Africa will be in the chat as well, or just send us an email at info-africacommittee@democratsabroad.org and we will be getting back to you as soon as we can. And please remember that as an all-volunteer organization, your donation will go a very long way to help. And that website also is in the chat, democratsabroad.org/donate. And let's get inspired. Let's be the change we want to be. by exercising our fundamental right to vote. And as Bishop Kelly said earlier, as long as you care, you can make a difference. And we care. So stick around for a cup of Java and chat, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks for joining us, and stick around.
Great.
So Eve, do you want to take over?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Yeah, I mean, we're now open. We've already seen the poll results. And so now we are, and I actually want to commend you, Elizabeth, for the pronunciation of all of those difficult names. Very, very well done. So I would love to entertain any questions or comments at this time. So please, the floor is open to everyone.
Sorry, can I just ask if you'd like to continue recording for now, or should I stop the recording?
I think at this,
Elizabeth?
yeah, I think at this point we can stop the recording. Let's just have it a real time, easy, cool coffee conversation.